he cannot stand but has an end. No man can enter into the strong man's house and spoil his goods, except he will first bind the strong man, and then he will spoil his house. Verily I say unto you, all sins shall be forgiven unto the sons of men, and blasphemies wheresoever they shall blaspheme. But he that shall blaspheme against the Holy Ghost hath never forgiveness, but is in danger of eternal damnation, because they said he hath an unclean spirit.
So here we have Mark recording this accusation against Jesus that he was casting out demons using the power of Satan. Why would these scribes, as it says, why would these scribes be making this accusation if he wasn't casting out demons in the first place? Mark wouldn't make this up. It doesn't make any sense. Mark wouldn't be defending against this accusation using the words of Jesus if this accusation wasn't actually being made. So we have, in both cases, we have casting out demons and doing miracles, opponents to Jesus accusing him of doing these things. So we already have something supernatural going on. But he also believed himself to be the Messiah. And again, a secular source, this guy's name is Suetonius. He lived from 69 AD to 140 AD. He says, because the Jews at Rome caused constant disturbances at the instigation of Crestus, he expelled them from the city. And obviously he spelled it wrong, but it's Crestus, it's Christ, which means Messiah. Clearly they were, all the early Christians believed this guy to be the Messiah, but you also have Matthew 11, if you want to turn there, 4 through 5. And John the Baptist is in prison at this time, and he sends people to Jesus asking him if he's really the Messiah. And this is what Jesus says. Does anyone want to read 4 through 5?
I'll read it. Jesus answered and said unto them, go and show John again those things which ye do hear and see. The blind receive their sight, and the lame walk. The lepers are cleansed, and the deaf hear. The dead are raised up, and the poor have the gospel preached to them.
So this is Jesus referencing Isaiah 61, which is a bunch of things that the Messiah is promised to do. So Jesus is basically claiming, look around me, look at the things that I'm doing. I'm doing the same thing that the Messiah said he would do. I am the Messiah. Yeah. So although there's lots of cases in which he tried to keep it a secret, Jesus clearly believed himself to be the Messiah. This is also, the same narrative is also in Luke, so we have multiple sources for that. So just as a foundation, we know that Jesus did miracles. We know that he cast out demons historically. We also knew that he believed himself to be God's Messiah. That's a great start already. It's also important to know that we can use the Bible as evidence for this. Lots of people will try to claim that you can't use the Bible, but the Bible is actually the best evidence that we have for the resurrection of Jesus, and that should be your blank there. That's best evidence, something like that. Because one, it's not just one book; it's a collection of books. So the Bible is multiple sources. So when I use Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, that all of them tell about something happening, it's not one source. The Bible is a library. It's not just one book. And also, the Bible contains our earliest sources for the life of Jesus. So they're going to be more reliable. Just because they happen to believe that he resurrected doesn't mean that they're less biased than people who don't believe that he resurrected. They just have different bias. Okay, now to get into the minimal facts argument. So this is an argument for the resurrection of Jesus historically, using 3 minimal facts. And these are all facts that historians regard as indisputable, basically. We're going to start from what we do know, and then use it to discern what we hypothetically don't know. I want to tell a story real quick. So, your friend calls you and says, I'm at my house. You want to come over to my house? And you go, okay. So drive to his address, you look on Life 360 and see that your friend is at his house because you're stalking him, apparently. And then you look inside the window and see a silhouette that looks exactly like your friend. Do you know, are you 100% sure that your friend is inside your house? No, you can't. I mean, your friend may have been lying, his phone may have been there, but he wasn't there, and the silhouette may have been someone else. But you look at these facts and you say, it's illogical to believe that my friend is not inside the house, so you go inside the house. And that's kind of like this. These three facts, just based on the historical part alone, we can't be 100% certain that Jesus rose again. But it's illogical to believe otherwise. It's the best possible explanation for these three facts that historians regard as fact. It's not theory. These three facts are. So, first fact is that Jesus died by crucifixion. This is probably the least contested one. Yeah. So we have multiple reports of this happening. Paul is actually our earliest source, not the Gospels. If you were in first service, you probably were following along in 1 Corinthians, or in chapter 2. Paul says, I determined to know nothing among you except Christ and him crucified. So then we have Paul reporting the crucifixion of Jesus. And that letter was written 20 years after the death of Jesus, which is incredibly early when we consider ancient history. It's reported in all the Gospels we have in our Bible, and we also have multiple secular sources that report this, but I'm just going to read two. So this is a historian named Tacitus. He lived from 56 to 120 AD, and he says, Nero, the emperor, assigned the guilt on a class hated for their abominations, called Christians by the population. Christus, Christ, from whom the name had its origin, suffered the extreme penalty during the reign of Tiberius at the hands of Pontius Pilate, and a most mischievous superstition thus checked for the moment, again broke out not only in Judea, the first source of the evil, but even in Rome. So when he says the extreme penalty, that's a euphemism for crucifixion. They wouldn't even talk about it. It was that bad. It was horrible. It's like when we say someone passed away. I mean, we can't say that they died. It's just a harsh thing to say that. He was even more so back then because it was in front of their faces, in front of their eyes every day. It was rough. And then Lucian, who lived from 115 to 200 AD, and this is a guy making fun of Christianity, and it's funny that we can use him as evidence for it. He says, the Christians, you know, worship a man to this day, a distinguished personage who introduced their novel rites and was crucified on that account. You see, these misguided creatures start with the general conviction that they are immortal for all time, which explains the contempt of death and voluntary self-devotion which are so common among them. And then it was impressed on them by their original lawgiver that they are all brothers, from the moment that they are converted, and deny the gods of Greece, and worship the crucified sage, and live that for his laws. All this they take quite on faith, with the result that they despise all worldly goods alike, regarding them merely as common property. So then we have Paul, which is incredibly early. All four of the Gospels that we have in our Bible, and two secular sources. So we can be extremely confident that this happened. And that's multiple reports. Like I said, the reports are also extremely early. Paul mentions the crucifixion in 1 Corinthians, around 55 AD, and claimed to preach this to them around 51 AD. And this is within 21 years of the crucifixion of Jesus, which is amazing. And then I want to talk about how credible the narratives that we have in our Bible of Jesus' crucifixion are. They're called the Passion narratives, and they're human credible. So to kind of imagine how credible these things are, we're going to do some table talk, I suppose. That's what they call it. So what I want you to do is to share something, anything embarrassing about yourself within your groups, if you would like. Go. It can be from the past, it can be from right now. You don't have to pick the most embarrassing thing, just something embarrassing about yourself.